Hello, it's Echo, just in case you're new here. This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. Someone pointed out to me that I should be calling these sponsored videos HelloFresh. That pun is some low-hanging fruit that I did not see. So, let's talk about acrylic and oil paint. The main difference between acrylic and oil paint is that acrylic is water-based and oil is oil-based. Makes sense, I just looked it up. In my experience, oil paint is difficult, just based on how I personally go about painting things. There's a lot of differences when it comes to oil and acrylic that, depending on how you go about painting, will be viewed as pros or cons. So for example, if you need to thin down acrylic paint, you can just mix it with water, which you can pull out of a tap if you are desperate, or if you care a lot, you can buy some nice filtered water. Whereas if you want to thin down oil paints, you need mineral spirits or some kind of chemicals, combustible, dangerous chemicals. If you're gonna work with oil, I recommend being in a well-ventilated area, because even though this says it's odorless, I disagree. It was making me dizzy for a while. So if you're gonna do oil paint, try to do it in a well-ventilated area. So that's one thing that I personally think acrylic has a leg up on. Probably the biggest difference in terms of actually using the paints, at least that I've experienced, is that oil paints take a million years to dry, whereas acrylic paints take like 10 seconds to dry. So depending on how long you want your paint to stay kind of malleable and workable, either one might be better for you. I personally like to lay down a layer and then let it dry and then paint over it, and just do that kind of continuously. So acrylic works really good for me. With oil paints, they kind of never dry. I mean, they will dry eventually, but they just take a million years. Like, this is still drying. It's been sitting here for 24 hours and it's still, like, if I really wanted to, I could leave fingerprints on this. On the plus side, that makes blending colors really, really easy. So if you're the kind of person who wants to blend colors by adding the new color on top and mixing it with the color underneath, oil paints would be really good for you. I did take an oil painting class when I was like 12, but after that I just kind of stepped back and didn't ever use oil paints ever again. I mean, oil paints probably last a lot longer and they're probably a lot more durable, so I want to get better at using them. Another thing that I really like about acrylic, on top of having them very readily available pretty much everywhere, is that you can choose between matte, gloss, and I think semi-gloss sometimes. But you can see this painting has been done with a gloss acrylic, whereas this one has been done with matte acrylic. Personally, I like the look of matte acrylic better. This first one is currently unfinished. I'm still working on it. She's gonna be like a licorice queen. And then this is a strawberry limeade. No, I think this is cherry limeade. So I kind of just made these to try out a couple different acrylic paint sets that I have, and then eventually I'm gonna make a video about varnishing, but I have to finish the second painting first. Right now I just want to talk about this specific painting that I've done, because I haven't really done a lot of oil painting, so this one was kind of a refresher for me, and because I've had this very simple oil paint set kind of sitting around for a really long time. I bought this before the pandemic, planning to make a fair amount of oil paintings, and I haven't opened it until now. So I figured this would be a good opportunity to go ahead and have some fun and play around with it. Reeves. So I started with an initial sketch, decided to work with one of the small oval shaped palettes. I'd like to make a companion piece to this one because I have two of the same size. Maybe I'll make one with cool colors and like purple poppy pods. We'll see. There's a girl that I follow on Twitter who makes these incredible oil paintings of women's faces with flowers. I don't know her name off the top of my head. I'll put all her info on the screen. I didn't want to look at her work before starting this because I wanted to just see what came directly out of my brain without any influence. Flying free without a reference. When you take something that you've drawn without a reference and then compare it to what you can do with a reference, you can see where your weaknesses are and where you need to work on forms or shading or color or whatever. I don't have words, okay? Can't words for garbage. Shirt link below the video. When it comes to oil paint, I wasn't sure if I should do like a foundation coat first, so I decided to just go directly onto the wood. For those of you who are more experienced with oil paints, are you supposed to do a foundation layer first? Like just solid white to coat the canvas? Someone tell me, because I'm not an expert at this. I'm just a hand-eye coordinated person who's learning how to oil paint and sharing my journey. So like I said, if you're going to be doing oil paints, you're gonna need oil paint, but you're also gonna need mineral spirits because you can't thin down oil paints with water. You could technically get away with not having mineral spirits, but you're just gonna have a less fun time without it. It's like trying to paint without a paintbrush. You can finger paint and it'll be fine, but wouldn't you rather have the professional tools that you need? I also recommend having a flat palette instead of this nonsense that I used because I ran out of space so quickly. When I'm putting my paint into my palettes, I always tend to do so sparingly, which is not the greatest because then if you run out of a color that you've custom mixed, you have to kind of just custom mix it again and hope that you get it close enough, or try to blend it really well. And something that was really cool about this is that I actually left this painting to sit overnight, and when I came back, everything was still wet, so I could just pick up where I left off and keep painting. That's something I've never been able to do with acrylic. While figuring out the face, I made a custom skin color and I figured I would just add highlights from there. So I decided to just slowly add white to that custom skin color to slowly bring out the depth and show where the highlights are. I'm also very light-handed. This is a problem I have. It takes me an incredibly long time to add depth because I prefer to just add layers of depth slowly, so it takes a very long time for me to build depth. When I first drew this, I didn't really have a hair color or eye color in mind, but I noticed that this palette has a fair amount of browns and warm colors, so I just decided to go with kind of like a dark brown hair, dark brown eyes. I noticed that when I added some white to the red, it actually made it this very kind of like magenta-y pink, which really didn't feel like light red. It felt closer to magenta than a pink. So I ended up using that for the lips and deciding that instead, for the poppies, I was just going to use the full red and then slowly add the incredibly dark brown for depth. So similar to the face, but exactly the opposite, taking the tone down to create depth. And then the interior part of the poppies is just the very dark brown. When I first drew the sketch, I was kind of thinking that the background would end up being blue, but once I had the skin tone and the hair and the poppies, I realized I should probably keep with a warm tone. So instead I decided to go ahead and just do the pure like golden yellow. Also towards the end I felt very done with this and I just wanted to throw a full color in the back and just let it go. I'm definitely gonna have to varnish this because I'm so worried that the paint is gonna be fragile. And originally I was going to make her clothes green, but because the stems of the poppies would be right on top of it, I decided to just go with the vivid yellow, and I had to add a border to separate it because the tone was almost exactly the same as the skin. Painting this face felt very, very wrong because as I was adding the highlights, I knew I couldn't put the eyebrows on until I was content with where everything on the skin tone was. So the whole time, it just felt very wrong until I could put the eyebrows on. Another kind of distinctly artist problem is that when I was drawing it, it was down like this. So when I picked it up to look at it, the head got kind of stretched, annoying artist problem, like drinking the paint water. And then the very, very last thing I did was to add detail to the eyes. So add in the pupils and a couple little highlights, just to add a little bit of depth. Nothing too fancy. I've realized that in the initial sketch, I drew her eyebrows way thicker and I wanted to give her big, fun eyebrows. And in the final, they ended up much thinner, but they kind of suit her face more as smaller ones. Not as fun though. I think overall this painting came out a little bit flat. I feel like it could be a lot more dynamic. The overall composition is not that great. I'm not super happy with how the face came out, but it was an easy little oil paint practice. It took about 4 hours total, and now I just have to wait 4 million years for it to dry. If you have any tips about oil painting, please put them in the comments and I'll like them so that they float to the top and everyone can see. And then before I tell you where I've been for the last month and a half, let's talk about our sponsor, HelloFresh. Hello, HelloFresh. Ooh, tongue twister. I'm very interested in how this HelloFresh is gonna go because they sent me something spicy. Whenever someone asks me if I have dietary restrictions, I always say that I can't have soy milk and nothing spicy. I'm just not a big fan of pain, you know? However, two other things that I'm not particularly fond of are tacos and coleslaw, both of which they have made delicious. So this is gonna be like the ultimate HelloFresh test of can you make Echo a spicy food she actually likes.
HelloFresh has more 5-star recipes than any other meal kit, so you know that you'll get something delicious every time. So this time around we're making firecracker meatballs with roasted green beans and jasmine rice. But they also have low-calorie, vegetarian, and family-friendly options, so there is something for everyone. According to Time Institute, the average trip to the grocery store takes about 41 minutes, and with HelloFresh you can skip those trips and get everything you need to make a chef-curated meal delivered right to your door. Because all of HelloFresh's ingredients are pre-proportioned, there's a lot less prep work, but also a lot less food waste. Food waste is a huge problem in America, and this is a great way around that. You can easily change your delivery dates, your food preferences, or just skip a week whenever you need to. It's a very convenient service. Fun fact, HelloFresh donated over 2.5 million meals to charity in 2019, and this year they're stepping up their game with even more food donations because of the whole coronavirus pandemic thing that we are currently in. Use the code EchoGillette80 to get a total of $80 off, including free shipping on your first box with purchase. Go to HelloFresh.com to redeem and for more details.
It's actually really good. It's not that spicy, surprisingly. I think if I ate both portions, the spice would slowly build up to a point where it was painful, and I can kind of start feeling it like halfway through the plate. It's an enjoyable dinner.
We'd still have more of those chili flakes. They're not super
Okay, I'll try
spicy.
I'll try the chili flakes.
Try
Where
a
are
little
they?
bit.
To like our bright orange table.
It's beautiful.
It actually does make it taste better. I'm kind of surprised. I'm glad that I actually tried that. Well, I'm gonna put the rest of the chili flakes on this. I give this a A+. I would say this meal is approved. I approve of this meal. It's good. Thank you, HelloFresh, for sponsoring this video. It makes a huge difference, especially now in these uncertain times. A month and a half ago, Arizona is having one of the worst COVID outbreaks in the country, so I just said nope to that and left to go live in the woods for a month and a half. While I was out there, we went kayaking for like 5 hours, and my skin changed color, and now my makeup doesn't match. This is my actual skin tone right now. Do you see how different and wrong that is? This is my winter makeup. I have to go buy summer makeup. It's like I've smeared toothpaste on my face. If I actually tried to spend time outside and taste the sun, I would change colors like a chameleon. When we were kayaking, I uncovered half of my legs for 5 hours, and now just look at this mess. Look at this nonsense. Do you see how much I tan? This is 5 hours in the sun. Also, the amount of mosquitoes out there was insane. Also, I have a new coloring book up. I'm gonna be making a video going through all of the artwork that's in it, but it is there if you want to get a sneak peek before the video. They're $5 to download from our store. We also still have some pins available, and then we're gonna be adding stickers soon. Very exciting.
Once again, if you use the code EchoGillette80, you can get a total of $80 off, including free shipping on your first box with purchase. You can redeem this code and get more details at HelloFresh.com.
I think that's all I have for you today. You have a great afternoon. Hopefully I will see you later. I'll give you 1,000 awesome points for making it all the way to the end of this video. Sorry my desk is a mess. Bye. Genius. Genius. You can do this, girl. You got this in the bag.